I'm Jeff Eschliman, the harmony coach, and happiness to me is appreciating what I actually have in my life today, every day, and intentionally.
Ooh, I love that you added intentionally. Jeff, when did this start becoming happiness for you, my friend?
2008, and it was
Yeah.
actually born out of everybody has crucible moments in their life, but I 2008 that led to quite a few changes, gratitude and happiness, and just being intentional with the way that my life went forward is how I live my life now.
Wow. Can you share what happened in 2008? Are you open to sharing it?
Sure. Yeah. So was the iconic, sitting on that in my doctor's office, right? It was the second year in a row that I'd had a physical. The year before, the doctor had said, "Hey, Jeff, you're extremely unthin." I was 340 pounds at the time. And I told him that, Doc, I'll make the changes. But I showed up this next year, same results, same blood work. And so this is 2008. So he's sitting in front of me on that little rolly stool, and he's literally writing out and it was going to be for some, cholesterol thing like that. And I literally knew, Phil, before page off the tablet, that I would never fill that prescription. But I took it out of his hand, tail between my legs, and I walked out of that office, and I said,
ooh,
the right thing, and you're not. I took that prescription home, and I set it up by my coffee pot, and I needed to change my life. And that was just one of many things that I'm full of years.
Wow, man, 340 pounds. So can I ask, what do you weigh now?
202.
Holy hell. That's 130. That's like 2/3 of a person you are
15% body fat. So yeah.
Dude, that's fantastic. So you must change your diet, change your exercise, and you got gratitude, huh?
Yeah, all of that, and super intentional. So one of the other things we had potentially talked about was maybe talking about the one-page. That is what guides. That is what guides that's my North Star. That's what guides the process.
Well, let's talk about that, and then we'll talk about gratitude next. So let's talk about your one-page plan, Jeff.
So as I said, star, and almost everything that's good in my life right now, Phil, I took from my corporate experience. And so I work for corporations a lot. We were taking these leadership retreats and going off site and getting quiet and getting grounded and all these things on myself. Well, how come we can do this as a leader? But I'm not doing this in my personal life. It started for me with my day of Zen process. I take a day a month and I do three things. Number one, I get the month that I just had. I do a wholesale reflection and goals than anybody that I know. Now, I don't know everybody, but I know a lot of people, and I have more goals than any single one of them. And so it takes me to review all of my goals. This previous month go how I thought that it would. And I mean, hey, what's my bank account? What's my relationship with my children? All of these things, right? And wholesale review day is building out a plan intentionally to crush that next month. And then the third thing it gives you, and we can come back to this maybe, is it gives you, it's that quiet time where you can actually think about and reflect on how right now, and more importantly, speculate on how it. So that's the one how I was running business for the last 15 years of our career. One-page plan.
No, tell me about it.
But in business, it is a simple and yet powerful, because probably on the call, your high profile resonate with like going and building a business plan where it fills up like a 3-ring binder, and then it gets set up on the shelf.
Sure.
And then about, September of the year, it's like, oh, hey, maybe we better go back to the plan and see how we're doing, right? But if you create this version, it is super simple, gets you very focused on what's important, and it's easy to review and it's easy to articulate. So it has core values, core competencies, core purpose, and then it breaks it down. In the business version, it broke it down to quarterly. In my personal life, I break it down to monthly. Month is a good chunk of time, right? You might have ever heard in your life, Phil, that said, wow, can you believe we're almost halfway through this year, right? Where it seems like we tore May off the calendar. And it's like, because I am super grounded in the moment and in the time. And that's where we're going to get to in this gratitude conversation.
Wow. Wow. So let's go through what's on the sheet first. You said core values, core competencies. What else is on there?
Core purpose, right?
Core purpose.
Yeah. So think core values. What is important to me in life? Think core competencies. What am I good at? Think core purpose. Where am I? More importantly, Phil, why? And then you break down your annual goals, and then you can either break them down quarterly, think business, or again, in my personal clients, and even with my CEOs, I break theirs down into monthly.
Wow. Wow. So that's powerful stuff. So that's not hard. You don't need a template or anything fancy for that. You can put that on one page and write that out. So how many core values do you have, Jeff?
The one page is the fancy template. This is like it's like bringing a magnifying glass.
Yeah. Wow.
Powerful.
Wow, that's so powerful. Yeah. And yet that's something that a lot of people either don't know how to do, because that's the first I've heard of it, other than our conversation,
right,
or they don't want to do. So now, I guess before we step into gratitude, like, Jeff, is this what helped you lose 135 pounds? Is this what got your shit together?
This is what brought the, if you've ever had back, that's what it's like, right? It's right. And
wow.
And unfortunately, we know how we have an abundance of information. Everybody, this is not Emperor's new clothes. The stuff that I talk about is grounded in fundamentals, and it's a simple: you sleep each night, your nutrition, being grateful, all fundamental things in life. And I would submit to you and the audience, you're not doing that with intention, and you're not doing that regularly. And this is what I found out: I wasn't doing it right.
So you do this, you look at it every day, Jeff?
Yeah, really separate process. We might need to talk about my carpe diem, right? So if you're not familiar, that's Latin for seize the day. A template that I fill every single day that makes sure that I rate myself, and I am going for masterpiece days every single. Now, I don't always get them, but here's what I would tell you: more often than not, I get a master. It was John. Well, it was John Wooden over there, right? That says piece, right? And that's
right. Wow. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Well, let's move into gratitude here, because that's where we want to go here. And you talk about intentional gratitude. So first, Jeff, for those who aren't familiar with the topic, because I'm sure there are some, what does gratitude mean to you?
Gratitude to me means a intentional of the good things that are in your life. And this gratitude, this is why I offer this even to my training clients. So I do a lot of corporate training with leaders, first-time managers, things of that, to equip them with the tools they need to be successful. And I work gratitude even in programs, because here's what gratitude is. It is simultaneously the simplest things to operate into your life. So simple and yet super powerful. Things for me, Phil, it's like, now, I mean, I wouldn't say that I could see through walls, but the meditation practice, it gives me such clarity. But I don't recommend meditation for folks right off the bat, because at least for me, it's super hard to implement and get my mind quiet and build a practice of meditation. It took me years, and it was brutally hard, right? But gratitude is something that is very simple. And here's how I assess: intentional, written practice of gratitude, because there is something magical when something comes off the end of your pen and it ends, and that goes for goals, and that goes for things like gratitude. And here's what you're doing with gratitude: you're training your brain to already recognize the good things in your life. And then what you're doing in addition to that is you're trained to look for those kinds of things as you go throughout your life, and bigger and better. And we all get to decide what appreciation means, right? Like most of your audiences in the United States, but not exclusively, but almost around the globe, right? You want to just start. Some people say, like, well, I'm having trouble getting started with gratitude. And let's say I'm talking to a typical American right here in our country. I would say, okay, so as we slept, right, just like you, there were around the world, and there's people in planes, and there's people scattered over this now that are protecting our very freedoms, kittens at night, right here in our own little bed, right? Or let's break what's in either of our rooms right now. To happen, somebody did something bad, or you could press 3 numbers on your phone, and people would be standing in probably less than 6 minutes. Now, is that it's not a miracle? That's how the system is built. But if you do take it for granted, and you don't appreciate, and you and me we've both been in the military, so we know what it's like to go sacrifice in other places, so that, we kind of, quote unquote, at least I feel like I sort of did my part, right?
Yep.
And now what's my part today? Like taxpayer today, right? Now, are the taxes too high? Well, maybe, right? But what's it like to live in the greatest countries in the world, and to be living in this day? And for me, those are all built on Phil.
That's fantastic. That's good stuff. So how do we begin incorporating that into our day? How do we start? I mean, you said write it down. So how many things do you write down, Jeff?
Sure. So my typical gratitude journal, and we'll talk about different types of gratitude. Use like a moleskin journal, or get anything. The reason I like the gratitude journals is it gives me just a handful. Maybe it gives me about 5 or 6 lines to write in, and that's just the right amount. And appreciate, like what the sunrise was, or to appreciate a meeting that I'm going to have. Or actually, I just finished this last weekend and had a cool interaction with all my adult children and other folks over here at my house having. And so I was appreciating what it's like for all of those folks to come commune and laugh and have a good time. And so sometimes it's just the little things. It's the what's it smell like after it rains, or like anything. There's nothing too small and there's nothing too big.
Wow. So just a few things. I love that. Keeps you focused, keeps it doable, makes it so that we can do that every single day. Now you're holding up your gratitude journal, which you were nice enough to send me a copy, which is packed in a nice box that'll be coming out as soon as I get moved in here.
Right.
So I love that. Thank you for that. So hold up that gratitude journal again, and let's open it up here and show people how simple this is.
Yeah. So it basically just gives you a few lines to each and every day. The one that we've built has quotes. And if you don't mind, I would love to just read like one little phrase from the very beginning. Elisa Perry, who actually created this gratitude journal for us. And I usually write this when I send somebody. It has no pinnacle, no limit. Gratitude evolves into more than just nation and becomes a state of being. That say it any better than that. That is exactly what gratitude Lisa said right there.
Wow. Wow. A state of being, which is so much more than a practice.
Exactly.
That's so powerful. That's so powerful. So with that, we could talk about gratitude all day, but I want to jam on a little bit about what I read on your website, and that is about harmony instead of balance, which I think is super interesting. You're the harmony coach, and I'll tell you, I thought harmony was just something in music, but you're telling me is it a state of being as well, Jeff?
It is a state of being. And if I'm going to talk about harmony, I usually start with goofing on work-life balance. So
Okay.
if I can start there.
Start there.
So first of all, this is how I think about work-life balance. So I'm kind of the old apothecary scale, right? With the bowls and the chains. And are you supposed to tell me that somehow we're supposed to put everything from our career and business, or, our work life in one of them, how everything else is supposed to fit in the other bowl? And so so here's what I say about work-life balance. It's the wrong measurement. Are we pursuing that, right? So I'm into it's too funny that you should mention a song, because I will often equate the type of harmony that I've created in my life, Phil, with like a beautiful Whitney Houston song, right? Like that. And right? Like that. But the other analogy, right, and the best one that I've ever come up with, is figure skating, right? So when I see figure skating, it is beauty and poise and power, like Olympic athletes. And that is like the best planet coming together. And then, Phil, and that to me is the of harmony, where you can include grace and power and practice and getting up for the moment and all these things that are capable in life, and putting it all together. And I'm the corporate guy. What it was like to live through quarters and iconic things in business. And I knew I was going to have to work a little bit harder, for example, March 30th, than I was going to have to work right in the middle. And so that's what harmony means to me. It's having all of these things in life, and it always out in the beginning, which are those fundamentals, right? How are you sleeping? How are you moving? How are you eating? Are you appreciating? Do you have your mind right? So strong in body, strong in mind, strong relationships. All of these pieces are the essence of what I think a life of harmony is, and that's what I help develop.
Wow. Wow. So what are some of the activities and practices that you engage in to stay balanced and stay in harmony?
So the biggest, right? So
okay,
it is the intent on how a month has went. And then, okay, well, let's unpack it then, because now you're asking about really the carpe diem, which is every single day. That is a touchstone for me, Phil. And I ask myself single morning, here are the two biggest ones I ask myself. What can this day? It was Jim Rohn that used to say, what, like a day is going to happen. So I'm never going to let without getting, and I don't mean getting like hedonistic, like I want this, I want that. I mean, yes, that, but what I really want to do is like, I want to be able to show up on your podcast and I want to deliver for your audience and I want to have a good time with you. Like that's what I want to get from this day. And I have a lunch meeting with a good friend, and every one of those I want to be intentional in the moment. That is what I want to get from each day. And then the other super powerful question, or who do I need to be today? And those are the questions I ask myself before I get in. And so being present in the moment or being prepared for this podcast, all of these things are who or what I need to show up with energy. I'm doing it for you.
Yeah, you're doing great, man. You're doing great. So you talk about intentionality, though. That's the difference between intentionality and expectation, right?
Exactly. And so the way back to, remember we talked about my core values on there. So it says, I'm learner. So on my Carpe Diem, read 10 pages of nonfiction today. And guess what? For a masterpiece day, 10 pages of nonfiction every single day. I'm going to live to be at least 103, Phil. And that means in between now and when I hiking in the Grand Canyon, I'm going to read more books. That's intentional.
Wow. Wow. So you figured that all out and figured that. So
I've done the math.
Do you have someone who can keep up? Holy balls. I mean, do you have someone that keeps up with you, Jeff?
I'm in
do your clients keep up? You got anybody that's
well, I'm not worried about the clients keeping up. I'm there to be a high bar for them. I'm there to give them something to strive for. And then that's what I think a coach does is you need to exemplify, right? That's parenting 101. And I call parentship position. The problem is not so many people do it so well, right? It's the do as I say, not as I do, right? Everybody knows how effective that strategy is, right?
Not at all.
So, but don't hang with the easy crowd kind of a person. That's why I go to Toastmasters to work on public speaking. That's why I'm in an accountability group to make sure that I grow my clients, because this accountability group is trying to grow me. And so that's what I do for the checks and balances.
Wow. So you've got this all systematized. Would you say that your habit is your happiness?
Yes. That Jocko Willink says discipline is freedom. And I ask myself, is discipline a good or a bad? And the short answer is it's both, right? Because if you're heading down to the principal's office because you got in a fight, you're going to find out how discipline is bad. Day of the week, and you get up in the morning and then you do meditation and you journal and you go outside and take a little walk, and then you do all these other things that are part of a scripted program, it is almost impossible to have so if you're having bad days in your life right now, maybe it's time to check. Maybe it's time to get a different routine.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. That's fantastic. So, Jeff, we talked about gratitude. We talked about, how you find your day as Zen, the 1-page plan. We talked about harmony. But I got to ask you, man, you said you're reading. You got 375 more books to read. What are you reading right now? What are you putting between your ears now?
I'm reading a hard book right now called Corporate Life Cycles, and it was written in 1988. I had to find one of my mentors recommended it for me. So I'm 3/4 of the way through it right now, and it reads like a textbook. If I didn't have a discipline, and because once I start a book, I don't stop it. I try to follow habits that I picked up when I did 75 hard. And that was read fiction every single day. And if I didn't have this discipline, this is the book that it would be easy Sunday, right? But I still picked it up and I read 10 pages because consistency, right? Phil, consistency trumps almost. I am not the smartest guy in the 0 hours, right? Like I just out muscle and out most people that I know. And unfortunately, I wish I was smarter, but you are what you're given, right? So learning myself and trying to grow from there.
Wow. Wow. Well, before I ask you how we get started on all of this, I just want to encourage folks to go check out Jeff's website. You go to jeffeschliman.com. That's JeffEschliman.com. Jeff's got some great resources there, including a harmony quiz that'll be helpful. And he's got one of the most thorough reading lists that I've ever seen on his website. Lots of great stuff there. But Jeff, with all that you've given us today, and you've shown up huge, man. How do we get started on this journey towards gratitude and harmony and developing our systems? What's the first step or two?
So here's what I would do. First of all, without leaving this podcast, so just as soon as this episode ends, go into your calendar and pick a time in the next 2 weeks. Maybe pick 45 minutes if you could put it on your calendar. Almost even super busy people can over the next 2 weeks and find 45 minutes where you can have quiet time. And then what I would encourage, harmony quiz that I have on my website, because that'll help you kind of think the areas of your life where you might be excelling, and then maybe some of the others. And it might help you bring clarity to areas of your life that, I mean, we all know the ones that are probably iconic to us in our life, but sometimes it'll be something like that. And it just brings a new reflection. And what I would encourage you to do is if you take the harmony assessment and then it's an hour to do 2 different things. Number 1, reflect on what has happened in your life up to this point. And then number 2 is a word that I love to use when I'm doing my day of Zen, which is speculate, right? And say, okay, here's what my life has consisted of. I'm sure there's going to be a ton of things in there that are really good. And you probably have just like regrets or things of that nature, or things that you could be doing different. And pick one thing and be very intentional about what you're going to work on going forward. And then here's the capper. On this, take another date on your calendar to reflect back on this, because you're missing, Phil. It's the consistency and it's the visibility. Like I said, the visibility that I have going on in my life is like a magnifying glass, that has that hot, heat from the sun, shining on my back, right? And I've created that for myself. I love that kind of discipline. Intentional practice of where you're regularly reflecting and regularly planning, to me, is the baseline to goals in life.
Starting with the fundamentals. Great stuff, Jeff. Lots of great stuff today. Again, friends, I encourage you, get to know Jeff more. Go to jeffeschliman.com. That's JeffEschliman.com. Take his harmony quiz. Get connected with Jeff. And if you do nothing else, take that day in the next 2 weeks, 45 minutes, and reflect. And then set the next date to actually look back and speculate on what might be next. Jeff, this is awesome, man. I appreciate you so much. This is great. Thank you.